Welcome everyone. This is the second AMA of our virtual hackathon Ask a Fox. Today we have Dennis Schubert, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly with my poor German. Dennis is joining us from the web compatibility team. He's gonna talk all things WebCompat. A reminder that this is part of our virtual hackathon where we are having different engineers from different teams. The reasons we chose web compatibility is because a lot of people have web compatibility issues when they're coming on our support forums, and a lot of times they don't know it's the website's fault, but they think it's the browser's fault. So we have Dennis here, who is an expert of the matter. How this is gonna go is we have already some questions pre-filled. Dennis is gonna explain a little bit on what he's doing in his job and small introduction. I'm gonna go and kick us off with already pre-submitted questions. Thank you everyone who has done so. And as the conversation evolves, people can ask questions either live, either raising your hand and or send them to me to either YouTube or Matrix, depending on the tools you are. If you're watching this recorded afterwards, please feel free to ask those questions again by posting them on Matrix and tag me so I can get them to Dennis. The only ask I have from people, either you are participating in the Zoom room or you are watching us from Mozilla or YouTube. When you're asking a question, do be respectful. You might have your frustrations. That doesn't mean that you need to volume or voice those frustrations is the right word via your question towards Dennis. If anybody is disrespectful using inappropriate language, I'm not going to voice those questions and I'm going to kick them out of the room plainly. I hope we have a good conversation. Without further delay, Dennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introductions and hello everyone. Yes, my name is Dennis. I'm joining you remotely from Germany in the south in Stuttgart. I am part of the web compatibility team. I use the unofficial job title of web superglue engineer because I think that's a really fun way and actually really descriptive. Yes, I am part of the WebCompat team, so I work on web compatibility issues. I should probably explain what that even is because I see there is a lot of confusion around it. In general, we define a web compatibility issue as like every time a site is broken in one browser but is working fine in another browser. So in my specific case, if you try to do something in Firefox and you have to switch to like Chrome or Safari or whatever, then that's an issue that I would like to know about. I don't really care if this is like a browser issue or a badly coded site. It doesn't really matter. I'm just interested in learning that you have to use another browser because we don't want that for obvious reasons. Um, my team is like relatively small. We have 4 Firefox engineers and 3 people dedicated to just triaging open issues. But of course, like we work with the entire Firefox organization to get issues resolved. Um, I have been around for quite a while. My Mozilla account was created in 2011. I originally started as a contributor to the Firefox developer tool, so I started as a volunteer too. A couple years after that, I joined Mozilla full time, and I'm now a full time engineer in the WebCompat team. Um, of course, like for web compatibility, our community is really important because no matter how hard we try, we don't know the entire internet, and we really depend on users to tell us what is broken. Um, Ideally, like everyone would tell us what is broken, but of course, in reality, like filing a bug report or just even using the built-in product reporter, not a lot of people do that. So we really depend on community members who are really interested in making sure that we know about the broken internet. And I think that's all I want to say in the introduction.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Dennis is also a fellow, as he said, German located. I'm in Berlin, so the north Dennis in Stuttgart. For those of you who love geography, he's in the south. And before we start with questions, you mentioned that you started at 2011, your first Mozilla account. What drove you to start contributing and being involved in Mozilla?
As I said, I started contributing to the developer tools, and that was just because at that time I was working in a web development agency. I ran into a developer tools issue that annoyed me a lot. So I attempted to fix it, and I was successful. Then I started adding a bunch more APIs. The developer tools code has changed a lot, but I was responsible for the initial console.count API, for example, if you know that. I did the original implementation. And yeah, I just worked on bugs that interested me because I was using the developer tools in my job back then.
Nice. It started as a necessity, it stayed because of love, I will say, with a very cheesy line. And with that, I am gonna start the questions. Again, if you have any question as we're having this conversation, feel free to drop them on the chat or raise your hand, or if you are not in the Zoom room right now, go ahead and add them on Matrix or YouTube. So first question is, WebCompat seems to rely on goodwill of the web developers. I'm curious, is there any diplomatic effort from Mozilla's side to encourage web developers to make their site works well in Firefox?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, it would not depend on the goodwill of web developers because, like, in an ideal dream world, it wouldn't matter which browser you use to develop, and everything would just work in all browsers. Reality sadly doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, like Chrome is the biggest browser, so just by the way statistics work, the, the majority of web developers are also in Chrome, and that sometimes breaks things. Ideally, we tell people to please use Firefox to develop your sites, because if you do that, you have a fairly high chance to make a site that works in all browsers, just because Firefox is probably the closest to a pure web standard implementation. That's a very hard thing to say, but we do actively like reach out to developers and say, hey, why is it that you're not using Firefox to develop your sites? Why is it that you're not testing in Firefox automatically? And um, we do try to reach out to web developers. Recently, we um, put a lot more focus on also like web developer relationships, because of course it starts with talking to developers who then start building their code for Firefox, because our users don't really have a way to fix broken stuff. Mozilla is also like responsible for the greatest web documentation ever, the MDN, which is absolutely great. We do a lot of effort there to say, hey, this specific API you can use in Firefox, or this isn't supported everywhere. So yeah, we try to do a lot to get developers to understand this. Yes.
Thank you, Dennis. What is usually the replies? Like, do web developers reply back to us? Like, what usually do they say? Are they like, oh, leave me alone? Or, oh, yeah, I didn't test that, let me fix it. Like, what's usually the perception we're getting?
It really depends. Like the funniest experience I ever had that was when I emailed a German company to talk to them about a web development issue. They then reported me to Mozilla Legal because they claimed someone is claiming to work at Mozilla. That was really funny. Um, we have we try to talk to developers, and it's a really mixed bag. Frequently we get like super friendly responses. They take our help and fix issues immediately. Sometimes we just get no reply at all. Another thing that we frequently hear is that we talk to developers and they say, hey, we would love to test in Firefox, but we just don't have the time or the budget to do this. That's also sadly like then a product management decision at their companies. So it's a really mixed bag. We have developers that are really interested in making stuff work. Others just don't reply at all.
Got it. Continuing to the questions that we have, how do you set your priorities and choose the bugs to work on? So, so how do you choose, Dennis?
Yeah, that sounds like a really simple question, but it's kind of not. So, just for reference, before the session, I counted the number of reports that we receive in total, and on an average week, we receive about like 25,000 issues every week. So it's like pretty clear that we can't look at every single report, no matter how big our team would be. Um, we can't possibly look at everything. So we try to focus on the issues that have the most impact, and there are like two main components to this. The biggest component is just an estimate of how many users would be affected. So of course, like if, for example, google.com is broken, that affects a lot more users than, let's say, my personal blog has an issue because it's read by like 10 people. So the bigger the site or the more traffic a site has, the higher the rank. Likewise, the kind of breakage also like matters a lot. Of course, if a site is completely broken and not usable at all, that gets a lot more priority than, let's say, a minor visual issue where a drop shadow is not rendered correctly or like a button has the wrong color but is still fine. So those are the two main components, the number of users affected and the kind of breakage that gets calculated into a WebCompat score, and that is just a number that we can sort by, and we try to work on the issues that have the biggest score. So the issues that affect the most users in the worst way possible. So like a broken site that is making it completely impossible to do your taxes will be way higher on the priority than like a small visual issue on a small site.
Got it. A follow-up question that came out from it is that what can we do, like we as a community, to help bubble key things up? And like, do you also like, so that's an interesting one. Are bots a problem that like, do you got a lot of like bad reports and bots spamming you?
I don't think so. I'm at least not aware of like lots of spam. The most important thing that you can do is just make sure that stuff is actually reported. We see a lot of users who claim, "Hey, I have this issue on this very popular site, and why is Mozilla not doing anything?" And then I check our databases, and no one has reported that issue before, so we literally just didn't know. So please make sure that stuff is reported. If you are a community member and you want to make sure that we actually know this issue, the ideal way is to just create a Bugzilla issue. We do have a dedicated web compatibility site reports component. You can file in there. If you want to spend a little bit less effort, we do have a dedicated site called webcompat.com where you can report an issue a bit more simply. You can even report completely anonymously there, which might be interesting to some people. And if you just have no time at all, there still is a way on Firefox Desktop and Firefox for Android in the like hamburger menu. There is a report broken site item. You can click there, say what is broken in a very quick way, and you can click submit and everything is great. Please just make sure that we actually know about the issue because quite frequently we don't know about an issue. Um, if you receive like a question on support.mozilla.org specifically, make sure this is filed on Bugzilla or webcombat.com because we just can't keep track of everything. The same is like if you see someone complaining on Reddit or on Mastodon or whatever, just make sure that it is filed in a place that we actively look at, just because there is way too much traffic.
Do you prefer people to go on web.com or on GitHub directly, or doesn't matter?
So uh, we don't want people to go to GitHub directly. Like if you want to file there, go to webcombat.com. Ideally, you would file directly on Bugzilla because that is just the quickest way that we can like look at issues. So if you have a Bugzilla account, if you are the kind of person who has a Bugzilla account, go to Bugzilla. In all other instances, webcompat.com is great. It is like really simple. It's not like as scary and technical as Bugzilla. So webcompat.com is probably the greatest way for the average user to report things because it just asks a lot of detailed questions that we just can't ask in the in-product reporter.
You. Let's dive a little bit more into some more specific questions. And again, for those of you who are watching us live on YouTube or Ermo or who are in the Zoom room, feel free to raise your hand and ask your question. We have a question. Can you explain how changing user agent could affect Firefox in any way?
That's
Which
another one of those questions that sounds super simple, but are actually like really complex. We do know that a bunch of sites exist that just say Firefox isn't supported here, please use Chrome or whatever. In those cases, you can try spoofing as another browser. Shameless plug, there is an extension called Chrome Mask, and use that. I built it. It's great. It's just a really easy flip to just pretend to be Chrome. Um, if you are completely blocked from a site, that might help, but please keep in mind that it's not guaranteed to help because, of course, like there are differences between Firefox and Chrome. Um, so it might not help. In most other cases where you aren't actively blocked, so you don't see a message like, please use another browser, it might not help because mostly when stuff is broken, it's because of an actual difference between browsers and not because a site is checking if it's Firefox. So usually it shouldn't help, except for instances where you actively see these block messages. And in fact, I actively discourage to use a user agent change extension on like a site that isn't specifically blocking, because that can break stuff in really unexpected ways. As I said, I do develop this Chrome Mask extension, and the most frequent bug report and like 1-star review I receive is I enabled it on YouTube and now YouTube is horribly broken. Please fix. And I like, yes, YouTube is a really complicated app, and if you pretend to be a browser that you are not, then things will break. YouTube isn't claiming that you have to use Chrome, so please don't use Chrome Mask on there. And that is true like most of the times. If a site isn't saying please use Chrome, do not change your user agent because it quite frequently breaks things in really bad ways, and we have we, we can't fix that.
interesting. Following up on that, also a more like specific question. I don't know if you can reply to this or not, but is Firefox going to support Web Serial and Web Bluetooth?
I can reply to that with a very clear maybe. Um, so there are a lot of these what I call like low-level device access APIs. We have Web Serial, Web USB, Web HID, Web Bluetooth, all those APIs. Mozilla has a pretty negative stance on that in general. Like we have our standards positions publicly. I don't know if we can drop a link, but we do have a public page explaining what we think about specific APIs. In general, like Web USB, etc., we think those are a privacy and security uh, risk for like reasons that I'm probably not going to explain here because that would like explode the scope. However, we did a trial with WebMidi, where we built like site-specific extensions that users can install to grant specific sites access to these APIs. We do have an open GitHub issues to explore this like extension gated approach for like the web USB, etc. too. That is still an open issue. We have internal chats about that. I honestly do not know the current state of that just because I'm not really participating in that. So all I can say is a solid maybe. I will drop a link to the standard position issue in Zoom chat. Maybe someone else can share this to public channels too. You can follow that issue if you are interested in that, but the main thing I want to say is please just observe the issue. There is no need to comment that, yes, this is super important to you. We know that this is affecting quite a few sites, Web HID specifically. I am a mechanical keyboard user myself, so I'm aware that there are a lot of mechanical keyboards who like use web-based configuration software, and I know that we mechanical keyboard people have like really strong opinions. I know that this is a issue that a lot of people have really strong opinions on, but if we do this, we want to get it right, not just from a making developers and users happy, but also like making sure that the privacy and security attributes of this implementation are on a level where people expect Mozilla to be, which is like way higher than the expectations people have to other browsers. So this is like a really complicated question and a really complicated story. Please follow like this GitHub issue that I linked. That is the best place to receive updates. We haven't forgotten about this. It's just really complicated. But we know that this is causing a bit of pain. We are trying to balance like security and making users happy, and it's not easy. Like it's the story of my job.
Yeah, I understand the appeal of the mechanical keyboards. I don't love them myself. I'm sorry, Dennis and Michael. I know you're both big fans. They're too loud.
Okay,
Uh, uh,
time to leave
but
Zoom now. This is unacceptable. Sorry.
no, I didn't offend anybody. But let's see. So somebody is asking, um, would you mind sharing some Firefox dev hacks? I don't know if you want to do that now or maybe at the end, Dennis, once we have a little bit more time, like if we have a little bit more time.
What is a Firefox dev hack? I don't think I
I
understand the question. Like if you are doing web development work and you feel you have to wreck around the platform, maybe don't. Like these are exactly the kind of situations where we start building web compatibility issues. If you start like using APIs that aren't maybe documented or like only are available in certain browsers, maybe don't do that. Um, I would need to have some what is a web dev hack? I'm not quite sure. If we can get a bit more clarification there, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, so for the user who asked that question, please add more information. What is the expectancy? You talk a little bit about standards, and I've also shared the links you and Danny shared. Somebody's asking, do you recommend Chromium in Firefox and as a future standard Web 3.0?
Was this a question if Firefox is going to switch to Chromium? Did I understand this right?
I don't understand the Chromium part, to be honest. I mostly asked it the future standard Web
Okay,
3.0.
so I mean, I can answer that. Do we have plans to turn off Gecko and switch to Chromium? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We do like Gecko. We will keep Gecko around. Like that is not a question. Web 3.0 is a term that gets meant for a lot of different things. I would also need a bit more clarification. What specifically are you talking about? Is one of those big words. In general, Mozilla is still implementing new standards all the time. There is a really good work happening in standards organizations. I know that some people feel like Mozilla is just refusing to implement anything new. I can tell you that this is not the case at all. There is a lot of really exciting stuff happening in the platform and standards world that we are implementing. Um, if you have a specific API or a specific use case that you are thinking about when asking this question, please clarify. Maybe I have an opinion on that. That being said, of course, like this entire space is so big that I can't be aware of like every single development. There's just way too much. But if you have a specific thing in mind, please ask.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other? I also want to make sure that it's not a conversation between me and Dennis, but also for the people who join in the Zoom room. Any questions from the things that you just heard from Dennis that they are bubbling up that you would actually like to ask him? Also, especially from community members who are in the room, that they are seeing a lot of support tickets. And there's some things that come up all the time that you are wondering how to reply to the user.
Okay, I don't think we have a question. How do you reply to users? Ideally, you try to reproduce the issue yourself. If you can do that, you can file a Mozilla issue and just tell the user, hey, here's a link to this issue. Please keep an eye on it. We will have a look at this as soon as we can. For stuff that is filed on Bugzilla, we do have triage meeting twice a week, so you will at least get an initial priority assignment usually within a week. And just telling users, yes, your issue is filed there, and we take all issues seriously.
Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, for those who are on the not also the other Dennis, we have two Dennis today in the Zoom room. Dennis or Dennison also is sharing the forum response site breakage troubleshooting article on support.mozilla in case you want to read a little bit more about this. And I will also now share that in YouTube as I am the bridge.
Constantine,
Michael.
Dennis, would it be
Yeah.
okay to ask a quick question that's a little bit specific to Thunderbird?
Sure.
And forgive me if this is a silly question, but as I understand it, underneath the hood, Thunderbird is not incredibly dissimilar to Firefox in terms of the rendering engine, etc. You know where this is going, perhaps. But as you're looking at web compatibility, is it the sort of situation where if it works in Firefox, then yeah, it'll work in Thunderbird? Or are there considerations that you make along the way of, hey, are we considering our partners on the other side of the fence? What does that look like for you when you're making these decisions?
Oh, wow. I don't think I ever thought about this. So we have never received a report about an email breaking in Thunderbird, but working fine in like Outlook. If we would see that, probably. So yes, Thunderbird is just Firefox with a different UI effectively. So like all the email content is rendered by the same engine that is also rendering Firefox web content. If there are differences between browsers, or in this case, email client, you can probably build a test case that also breaks in Firefox. Then we would look at this. I'm not part of the Thunderbird org. I work in Firefox, so as I said, I have never seen a report like that. Probably yes. Like if there is a differences between like Thunderbird and another client, then you would see the same breakage in Firefox, and then it would be a valid issue. Yes.
But yes, email content, of course, but perhaps also if it could extend to localizing strings, or we have an add-on ecosystem. We have a community of add-on developers. A lot of those perhaps might be calling a web page or something of that nature.
Yes. Yes. Like if there is difference in how web content is rendered, it should
Yeah.
behave the same in Firefox and Thunderbird. So yes.
Perhaps we can contribute some of our reports and issues to you as well, if we ever come across those.
You can just ping me or like ping the team. We do have a public matrix channel called web compatibility. Everyone is invited to join and chat about WebCompat stuff, and that includes Thunderbird developers and users. Although, yeah, I have never seen that. That would really nerd snipe me, probably. I would spend a lot of time digging into that.
I would, yeah. I know that for the email messages themselves, they use a very simplified HTML because emails like MailChimp and all these other systems, Substack, Ghost, all use a very small subset of HTML. So hopefully the issue wouldn't be there, but add-ons is a good point. Thunderbird add-ons could have an issue, I suppose. Never encountered that either.
I did think about saying that, but I know that emails use a lot of like exciting table layouts
Yeah,
and
from the past.
yes, just the way that web standards are written, the prehistoric technologies are like way more difficult from an interop view, just because the standards back then were not really written with like 100% guaranteed interoperability in mind. So we do have quite a few tricky issues with like table layouts and float differences. So I
Right.
would actually expect those simplified HTML to be more affected, but it's also
Oh,
like
the
so
opposite of
simple
my
that,
guess.
yeah, like just earlier today we triaged an issue where we had an actual like rendering differences, and it was just a table and two paddings overlapping, and that just broke stuff. And tables and CSS padding is not modern tech, but it somehow broke things. But yeah, I'm really surprised that I've never seen like mail content differences report. That's curious. Maybe web developers building emails are just really good at testing it, because mail clients are generally really horrible. So you have to test quite a lot. So
Yeah, and I think
maybe,
there's a lot of lowest common denominator, and people aren't pushing the edge like they are with web apps and Firefox and
yeah,
Chrome,
that,
etc.
yeah, that might be it.
Maybe we reach out and have a follow-up conversation and share some of those results with the community. And maybe we could put together a best practices. That way people can know what to look out for, and we can start to bring some of those reports to your team. Appreciate that, Dennis.
Oh,
Thank you, Michael and Roland, for representing Thunderbird. Uh, uh, Always love to hear from you folks. Dennis, question. I remember back in the day, like I don't remember when, but there used to be this motto from the WebCompat team saying, our role is to not like our goal is to not have a job in the future, meaning like if we are successful, we don't need to exist. And I always find it kind of catchy and kind of funny, and it is very, very true. So I'm wondering if, like you talked about how you are working with web developers, you've talked about that you have involvement also in standards. I'm wondering if, as part of your role, is to also collaborate with other browsers about how, like, on issues that you see often and how to deal with those issues so they don't keep on coming.
oh, absolutely. If we're talking about modern standards specifically, they have really good coverage of automated tests, and we call them web platform tests. You can Google that. Um, Modern standards have like really good test coverage, so we just have an automated way of checking that all browsers behave the same. That being said, like no test suite is ever like complete, and we do find differences in browsers all the time. Um, the Chrome bug tracker is publicly available. The WebKit bug tracker is also publicly available. We frequently file issues there. We also talk to other browser developers in standards meetings, etc. That happens all the time. No browser vendor is, for the most part, really interested in actually breaking the web for any browser. So generally, we always try to make it work somehow. Quite frequently, it's not as easy. If we are talking about a piece of technology that is already like widely deployed, and web developers depend on an API behaving a specific way, then like no browser is just going to change that and break like half of the internet. So those problems are always like really complicated. But yes, we talk to other browser developers literally every day. That's just, yeah. And they are really friendly people. Like we don't yell at each other and like throw stones. We are all just engineers who have like the same interest, and that is making the internet like interoperable. So yes, all the time.
Got it. A question that came in as you were talking. Can users scrape, the web to help surface compact issues? Like, is there some way that, somebody can go on looking rather than, oh, my website site is not working, let me report it on Compat. In particular, like scripts or anything like, also, do you do something like that? Like, right? If there was a way for users to scrape the internet, like, are you scraping the internet to find web compatibility issues?
That is a really good question. We tried a lot of different approaches. There is this project called HTTP archive, which like makes a lot of HTML and CSS and JavaScript searchable. We have tried to use those previously. The problem is just knowing that a site is calling an API isn't all that helpful. Like there are a lot of reasons why a site could call an API that Firefox isn't supporting, but a site isn't actually broken. A lot of sites are doing fingerprinting to detect like which browser is it. But I check like, is this Chrome only API existing? Then it's probably Chrome. But that isn't breaking anything. So those approaches didn't help a lot. We also tried taking literal screenshots and comparing those between browsers. The problem is that also didn't help too much because a lot of the web is like really dynamic, and you get like new sites where the content changes every minute, so you can't compare that. There are a lot of sites that do A/B testing, so serving slightly different versions of a page to different users and see which one performs better, etc. We tried a lot of different approaches. We haven't found a way that creates more real reports and not too many false positives. And we just saw a lot of false positives where stuff wasn't actually broken. So we haven't found a way to do that. I'm not sure if there is a way. If you have like really novel ideas, maybe drop into our public matrix channels and talk about that. We tried a few different approaches, haven't found anything that actually works the way we wanted to.
Thank you.
And for anyone, I apologize, Konstantina. Just a quick question for Dennis. For anyone listening that would want to hop into that Matrix channel, can we get the name of that Matrix channel one more time for our listeners?
It's just web compatibility. Very creative.
I mean, people remember, right?
Yes.
A follow-up question on a question that happened before. Dennis was also asking, the other Dennis, about the WebCompat score and how it is calculated. Could you please also comment on that?
So yes, in the beginning I talked about like how we treat like different kinds of breakage differently. Like a site that is completely broken is more severe than a site that just has a minor visual difference. The score is just a numeric representation of that. I don't know if there is really accessible public documentation. The triage extension that we use is open source. So you could just look at the code to see how we calculate the score. Like I can drop a link to the extension there. I know that we have a document on that, but that also includes a lot of stuff that isn't public. I don't know if we have a public document. If we don't, we should. But let me follow up on that. Like I can see if there is already a document, and if not, create one. Because yes, like there should be one, and I'm fairly sure there is one. I don't know if James is listening to this. he would know, but I can figure that out and share that in the future.
Thank you. Any other follow-up questions? All right, I have one. Do you do more effort on looking for web compatibility issues every time we're getting a new release? What I'm trying to say, can a release break things, or can a release deploy things that can break things on the website that it can actually have a major impact on users?
It can, occasionally it does. I think Mozilla is really good at not letting that happen. We do have quite a lot of users using Firefox nightly and Firefox beta. So usually if we break things, then we notice before Firefox release actually ships. Occasionally, yes, it happens that a regression ships in release and it breaks the internet. We generally treat these as super severe regressions. The web compatibility team has really good contacts into the Firefox release management team. We treat those as severe regressions and make sure that this is resolved really quickly. Luckily, it's really rarely happening. So that, that's another thing our community can do. Please use Firefox nightly or better. And if stuff breaks, please tell us before the release is actually a release, because if it's still in pre-release, then it makes our lives a lot more relaxed and less stressful than dealing with an incident. But yeah, luckily that's really rare, but it does happen.
Thank you. A question that came in. The person wanted to ask about site interventions. What are the criteria for them to be applied and for them to be removed in positive scenarios? How do they look like?
So, I already talked about that. We try to talk to web developers every time we see a broken site. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We, of course, also try to make changes to Firefox itself to address issues, but frequently we can't really do that, either because we just can't change the behavior of an existing API because it would break half of the internet, or just because a proper fix would take quite some time. So we do have this mechanism we call the site interventions that are just little snippets of CSS or JavaScript that then we can inject into specific sites to change how certain parts of the browser or the site behave to make things work. Like, the simplest example I can provide is just spoofing as Chrome on a site. That happens occasionally, but it can be as complex as we wanna make it. We do have on Bugzilla a keyword called WebCompat needs site patch. If you're interested in that, search for it. Those are all the candidates. In general, if we can fix it over a site patch, we try to do that, because doing that is a lot quicker than like building a platform change and like letting it ship to release. That's going to take months occasionally, and our site patch process is like really quick. We generally don't remove them until the issue is addressed somehow, like either the site has changed and the issue is no longer happening, or like the Firefox changes have been applied so it's not broken. So um, my goal is to make the internet work for our users. I don't really care how, but if stuff is broken, we want to fix that. And site interventions are a quick and easy mechanism to make that happen. And those stay in place up to the point where our users are no longer affected by the issue, because we don't want our users to see broken sites.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to switch a little bit gears. We have a little bit more kind of general questions coming in. The first one is, what is a day in the life of the Mozilla WebCompat team like?
I can't answer that question. I at the moment do not really know what I will be doing tomorrow. Like I have a plan of what my day is probably gonna look like, but of course, like my work, I focus on reactive WebCompat a lot. So like fixing stuff that is broken, and if YouTube is broken tomorrow, then I will spend most of my time tomorrow fixing YouTube somehow. So I'm almost like a firefighter. I don't really know what I will be working on tomorrow. Generally, of course, we do have a lot of like stuff that is happening all the time. That is like triaging stuff that has been reported on Bugzilla, just making sure that the priorities are assigned correctly. We do that twice a week. Um, we also have like a lot of meetings to talk about future platform changes to make sure that those break the web. Emailing developers or like other browsers or like filing standards issues, creating interventions, but it's all like really flexible. If you like a job that is like very predictable, do not work in web compatibility. It's like the exact opposite. And yes, if there is an incident where like a big site is broken, then there goes my plan, and I will be working on that incident. And that makes my job really exciting. But it makes this question really hard to answer because I don't know what I will be working on tomorrow for the most part.
It sounds like working in support.
Yes, yes, yes.
He knows the struggle, and we know that struggle. Um, a little bit more direct question is like, what if I want to contribute fixing a WebCompat bug? Like I report it, but maybe I have the capability to fix it. What kind of skills do you need?
So each WebCompat bug has a few different stages. Initially, we just know that, okay, there is something broken here, but between knowing, okay, this is broken, but knowing why it's broken, it's actually like really difficult. This is just a bit of black box debugging. So we use the Firefox developer tools to just figure out why is this broken. And if this is interesting to you, you can go to Bugzilla. There's a keyword uh, webcompat needs dash diagnosis. Those are all issues where we know that stuff is broken, but we don't know why. And that is like a really good area to contribute because there are more issues in this queue than we have time to look at. So if you like debugging little puzzle mysteries, that is great. If we do understand why it's broken, and we think we can fix that over a WebCompat intervention, that would also be open to contributors. I would recommend you to join the Matrix channel and like talk to Tom, who is in my team, and say, hey, I'm interested in contributing this intervention for this specific site. How do I do that? And Tom will help you. You can, of course, also try talking to developers and reporting issues. However, I will say it really helps if you have a @mozilla.com email address. Like that is a shortcut into getting into people's inboxes. But you can absolutely help during the diagnosis stage and creating the intervention. You can, of course, work on platform issues too. Like Firefox is completely open source, and you can tackle issues that are affecting web compatibility. Usually, those changes are like more complex than you might hope, so they might not be a good first issue. But if you are interested into that, just use the generic contributing to Firefox channels and say, hey, I'm interested in like addressing these issues. What do I need to do? How do I do that? But please talk to people first. Don't just start creating code because frequently with those changes, there is a high risk of breaking existing sites during the change. And we, of course, don't want to do that. Like, we don't want to fix 2 sites and break 20 in exchange. That is like not a good deal. So please just talk to people first. But yes, you can absolutely do like contribute Firefox patches too if you're into that.
Thank you, Dennis. And as we are getting into the last 5 minutes of this call, I would encourage everybody to add your questions to ensure that we will have time to reply to them all. If we don't get to them, I'll make sure that Dennis will get them and have a written question. Another question that came in: any issues with compatibility or WebGL that is being dropped industry level?
It sounds like the person asking this question has a specific thing in mind. I would encourage them to ask that specific thing. There are, of course, a lot of issues where people just don't test in Firefox, and this is kind of like an industry failing to a point. But in general, like, browser developers try to be interoperable. Web developers usually just pick what is working, and ideally stuff should just work in all browsers. If you have a specific question in mind, ask that. I wouldn't really say that the web development industry has completely failed. A lot of developers just wanna make their stuff work, so I don't think I have a good answer to that.
Thank you to the person who asked the question. Feel free to ask any follow-up specifically about it. Another question: how many site interventions are there, and how do you monitor the issue over its lifetime to determine when the intervention is no longer required?
Yeah, I should know the number of interventions that we have. I don't. So if you are using Firefox, which I hope you are, and you can type about a colon compat into the address bar, and you will see a list of the interventions that are currently applied to your build. If you do like reading code, there's also a giant JSON file that contains all the interventions. I just dropped the link into Zoom. Maybe people can share that. I think there are 312 interventions at the moment. Most of them have automatic tests to make sure that the site is still broken without the intervention. We do run those tests regularly, and if we see that this site is no longer broken, if we disable the intervention, then we remove it. So we do have pretty good automated tests there. Occasionally, if sites require like a login or a specific VPN or whatever, we do also manually test them to make sure that we still need the intervention. That usually happens at least once per release cycle. And just make sure that, yes, we need all those interventions and remove all those that are no longer needed.
Thanks, Dennis. The person who has asked the question says, and another one says, I got 276 interventions for my nightly build on Linux.
Yes,
So,
that makes, yeah. We do have a few interventions that are only applying to Android or like only applying to desktop. So there is a bit of a difference between browsers. The JSON file that I linked contains everything for desktop and mobile. So that is like the canonical source of all our currently shipping interventions.
oh, I am very aware of time. We should say our goodbyes. But before we do, are there any last burning questions you folks like to ask? Dennis?
I don't, but I would just invite everyone to drop into the Matrix channel. If you see a broken site, please make sure that we know about it. We can't read your mind, but we can read your Mozilla bugs. So please make sure that this is filed. Talk to us. We are just humans. And yes,
That could be a t-shirt. We cannot read your mind. File a bug.
yes.
And then Bugzilla, you URL underneath. Thank you, Dennis, a lot for being here. Thank you, everyone who was here, either in the Zoom room or in YouTube or Elmo or wherever you're watching us now or afterwards. A reminder, this is a series of AMAs we are doing. Tomorrow there is going to be an AMA with Thunderbird. And there's also going to be a community get-together earlier. This is part of our Ask a Fox virtual event where we are coming together to help users with their support questions, but it's also an opportunity to learn more about Firefox, learn more about Thunderbird, and do some fun activities like finding foxes and light. How do you call it? It's not a light bulb. It's how do you call the... Oh, my English are failing me. Roland?
I'm here to help. Just let me know where you're trying to go.
The light sign.
It's a lightning bolt.
Thank you. A lightning bolt.
Yeah, it's a wizard scar. It's a lightning bolt. It's Thor's signature.
Yeah. So go and find them on the KB
Thor's
articles.
signature. That's it.
Thor's signature. That's a new name. If you also are interested in helping other users, be part of like the rest of the community to reply support questions. And in the you can get awesome badges, and if you are one of the top ones, also swag. Thank you, Thor. Harry's car. Yes, there we go. Here's the Potterheads in the room. Thank you everyone for being here. Special thanks to Dennis for having the time to participate, and then always thank you to Andy, who is the person that is helping us facilitate those calls. See you all tomorrow on the next community called an AMA. In the meantime, have fun, everybody, and always protect the open web.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was very helpful, Dennis.